I can do that.
Okay, then you can just start letting people in.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, Paul.
Buddy, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
All righty.
Good. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to be here.
Yes. Have you been out racing at all this week?
Nope, not this week. In a week and a half, I leave for Wisconsin to race at Road America.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Fun. Stephanie, can you look in HubSpot, and Claudia is having a hard time getting in. Can you see if you can help her?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me give her a call.
Cool. You see the Casolas here. Good to see you guys, and Steve.
How we doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I have a house full of relatives right now, so I'm going to keep the camera off.
Full of what?
Relatives visiting from out
There
of
you
state.
go. Okay. Awesome. Great. Well, Paul, I have to do a shout out to you just because we're on here. Is you are one of the hardest workers that I've seen, and you're a model for everybody. And some of the people on here are staff right now, and your reputation precedes you from actually this
Thank
time
you.
together. So,
Thank you. If I can get the heart coherence part down right, I'll be set.
yes, that's not always the easiest, but
I'm 0 for 20, I think.
we'll get you there. You'll get there. Hey, Claudia. Oh, let's see. We got. Okay, different people are coming in. We'll wait just another minute and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Stephanie, I think the iPad one probably needs a little bit of help, but you don't need to be able to talk back, so that's fine. You can let them know that. Okay. Okay, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get rolling. We're recording the talk so that if you know somebody that would like to hear more, that you can send that out. Also, we have some people that are in a different time zone that this time is not working for them, so we're going to be recording and giving that to them. Okay. So just a couple announcements. We are about 4 weeks away from releasing a new neurofeedback or Inner Armor Neuro app that will all be able to be done on your iPhone, iPad, and also have some new work where we're actually going to be doing some interface, not just with YouTube, but with any service, any streaming, which is very fun to look at that. And also in July, we're looking to bring together a medical advisory team of some physicians and people in the sports world that work with different medical things to continue to advise us on research and different things that we're doing. So we're looking forward to presenting that group to you of these different researchers. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to talk today about brain body aging. And when we think about aging, sometimes that might bring a negative thing to people's mind. Other times it might bring a positive thing. Retirement and a different type of life that maybe slows down a little bit. We all have different images of that. But the reality is we all do that. We've actually done that in the last 30 seconds. We've gotten a little bit older than we were 30 seconds ago. And it's just a natural progression of how our brain and body works. But what I want to talk to you today is about some different biomarkers or way that we can look at this process. Because you might have a timestamp on you from the day that you were born that says that chronologically you are a certain age. So my chronological timestamp would say that Doc or Tim is, 58 years old, 5 months, 26 days, and 48 minutes old, which is true. But just because that timestamp says that doesn't mean that every aspect of me is on that same timeline, right? So we kind of first have to break through that thought. Yes, I might be 58, but where is my heart? Where is my brain? Where is my sleep? Where are my hormones? Where are all these different things that are kind of the upstream components of me? So when I talk about upstream, downstream are kind of like my behaviors, things I do. And there's some things that I do that act a lot like 58. And then there's some things that I do or maybe shouldn't do, like on the pickleball court, that act as if I'm younger. And then I find out the next day I shouldn't have done that, right? So there's behaviors that we do sometimes that don't always line up with our age. I was on a big hike with my wife yesterday, and for her birthday, she wanted to hike to the top of this mountain, which I'm like, you don't want to go out to eat or go out and get something nice. No, I want to go to this top of this mountain, which I'm like, oh my gosh. And so we're climbing up this thing, and we got up there and we're going over these rocks, and I'm like, man, I used to go over rocks like this, like it was nothing. And now I'm like really careful. And I'm like, oh, that must be part of the aging process. So our behaviors kind of change. Thoughts and emotions might change some. But what does change definitely is our physiological functioning. Our heart only has a certain lifespan in it. Our brain only has that. And all the different organs only have a certain time frame in them. So those are changing. And then the most highest level that you're going to get, which is the brain, that's the highest level of functioning in how we work. It's the highest upstream I can go. So I always want to be looking back at the brain and where it's functioning, not just the timestamp that's on me, not just my age. So I had this this business guy that I worked with for a number of years, and we did a sleep study on him. And I looked at his sleep study and I said, hey, we'll call him Bob. I said, hey, Bob, I know you're 61, but your sleep looks like you're 74, because we can look at the timestamp of sleep. And I said, that doesn't line up with your timestamp of age. And so I said, let's work on different things related to your sleep. Let's work on how you're breathing at night. Let's work on the different stages of sleep you're getting into different hormones, what we call sleep hygiene. And we did a lot of some of the programming that you guys do. We did some inner armor resilience, some inner armor neuro. And about 3 months later, I went to look at his sleep again. So, Bob's only a couple months older, so he's now 61 years, 4 months, right? But I look at his sleep, and his sleep now is aging at 48, right? So what we've been able to do is anti-age his deep sleep, which has a lot to do with how my body's going to function later in life, and his brain in his REM sleep and how that's functioned. So we want to look at these upstream variables that tell us a lot about our age, okay? So the main things we're going to look at is this natural decline of what's called the parasympathetic response in our brain and body. So you have this nervous system that's constantly regulating you to manage the environment. And so if there's something stressful in the environment, the nervous system goes into this sympathetic or fast state. But once that is over with, the nervous system should slow you back down into what's called a parasympathetic, or almost like a brake pedal. This physiological, neurological brake that we have, braking like a brake in a car, that helps us offset stressors. Well, what we know and what you're going to see today is that what causes us issues as we age is the fact that this brake pedal starts to lessen its effectiveness as we get older. So everything we can do to help improve this braking mechanism, the better off we are for making time stand still, which flows into our ability to be resilient. So I talk about resilience and recovery a lot with a lot of my professional athletes that we work with in relation to after the game or before the season starts or in the scope of a season. How do they stay resilient and recover? You know, how does that NFL quarterback, how do I keep him that he's recovering from Sunday to Sunday, right? That's not very different than as we go through the aging process. How well are we recovering more on the macro level and developing resilience? Resilience is really the thing that holds back time in relation to aging. We're going to talk about a few of the negative contributors and then some positive influencers on this. Okay, so let's first talk about this. And we're going to go about another 15 minutes, just so everybody knows. I forgot to say this at the beginning. We'll go to a little bit before 7:30, and then we'll do some Q&A, and we should wrap up here by 7:35. Okay. So this is a study. I've seen close to 100,000 brains, and this was over a period of time back in between 2012 2016, where I looked at a couple thousand males and a couple thousand females over the lifespan. And this is a chart of 5-year increments. And what you're looking at here is we were doing brain mapping on these males and females. You can see in 5-year increments, 0 to 5, up to 80 to 85. Okay, so these are 5-year increments. And we have a calculation when we do a reading of the brain, an EEG of the brain, that lets us tell how efficient the brain is working. So the brain's an electrical device, and it has this combination of brain waves that let it slow down and brain waves that let it speed up. And there's a perfect meshing of these two that puts you in that sweet spot. If you've ever been in that spot where you're like, man, I'm just getting so much done in so little time. Or if you're an athlete and you're just making putt after putt after putt, or give me the ball because I'm going to make the shot, you know, or our friend on here that's a race car driver, and he's just making those laps and he's just like way ahead of his time. Like he's in that zone, right? That spot, that efficiency we measured in the brain of all these males over their lifespan. And what was interesting was in, you know, the developing brain up to about puberty, the brain was doing a lot of work trying to like find itself. But I thought it was very striking that it didn't start here. It actually had its greatest efficiency just around 15 to 20 some years of age, which is about the time that we transition out of high school in many cases into higher education. That's where we feel like people can kind of learn the most, whether we did that by science or just kind of the way it happened. But that is typically where the brain is learning a lot of high level things. We're making big decisions, deciding what we're going to do as far as a spouse or a future. But it was very interesting that the data showed that these brains were more efficient, the most efficient that they could be in the amount of stress and recovery was between 15 to 20 years of age. And then do you see what happened? I would have thought that electrical current is just going to vary person to person and kind of stay the same through the lifespan. But it didn't. The efficiency got less and less and less. And in this group of males, do you see what happened between about 65 to 70? They have this big drop off. And it's very interesting for males that kind of and females do as well, but males traditionally will be in these high stress environments where they're going, and then they retire and then they kind of feel lost many times. And that happens for the females too. But in the case for this study, I think is representative of what we see a lot, where physiologically the system kind of falls apart. Then if they make it through this stage, then the ones that are more resilient kind of come to the surface again. and then eventually the brain kind of loses some of its effectiveness. So I not only looked at males, but I also looked at females. And in this case, we looked at 1,100, no, 1,100, what is it? That's not right. That should be 1,191. That 9 on the end shouldn't be there. But we saw the same dynamic that in the developing brain, it's not as efficient until it hits about 15, slightly earlier than males. And from experience, that is pretty common, right? Females maybe a little bit more maturity and things like that. Again, and I don't mean to be stereotypical, but you know that kind of can happen at times. And then all of a sudden the brain goes down, and then it hits kind of a low point right around menopause in its efficiency, which makes sense. Sleep disruption, a little bit more tension as this and stress as this hormonal, these massive hormonal changes are happening. But as they come out into their 50s, mid 50s, all of a sudden the brain gets super, super efficient. We see the same drop off a little bit like males, but then this really high efficiency right at the end. One last shot of that, which just shows how the brain ages over time. Let me finish up on this by putting the two next to each other. And the males are blue and the females are red. And it is interesting, this kind of discrepancy here, very different. And then also this higher efficiency in females that happens. The takeaway from this is that your brain changes over time, and everything that we can do to reverse this inefficiency that happens where the stress brainwaves take over and the parasympathetic or braking brainwaves diminish, and we increase the braking brainwaves and decrease the stress waves, we're moving ourselves further back in time. Okay. And for those of you that are doing brain training, those braking brainwaves are theta waves. We talk about theta a lot and how we don't want to have low theta. Okay. And low theta is what happens here to the brain over time. And that's why you always hear me when I say your theta's dropping below 2, we're going to get very serious about getting your theta waves up, because when we do, it anti-ages the brain. On the fast brain waves, it's the high betas, the really fast ones, that we want those as low as possible because they're related to stress. Okay, let's look at another dynamic of biomarkers that change. Another biomarker that changes before I get into sleep is you actually have something called your intrinsic cardiac pacemaker. And so this is kind of like a brake pedal. In the brain waves are theta waves that slow you down. And in the heart, you have this pacemaker that even though your heart rate is higher, it kind of keeps you in check all the time. But it's very interesting when you follow that cardiovascular pacemaker over time, it actually becomes less efficient. And there's a point at which it finds it very hard to keep the heart in check and to balance it. And consequently, why we might see more cardiovascular issues later in life, because this pacemaker, this ability to break the heart correctly, loses its efficiency over time. We're not going to get into that for today, but it's just one of those things to maybe look up and study some. In our heart rate variability work that we're doing, where we're teaching you to breathe and improve how your heart works in coherence, we are trying to reverse the negative effects of that cardiovascular pacemaker declining over time. And that's what good breathing and good HRV does, is it pulls the heart back in time and makes it stronger. And so while some of you might bump against getting your heart in coherence through the breathing exercises, it's something we have to take seriously, because the better we do it, the further back in time we can take the heart in its aging. You remember, you might be a certain age, but if I can get the heart to function like it's 10 years younger, we're going to stop the impact of that. Okay, so here is sleep. I found this a number of years ago, and I always thought, you look at your your Fitbit or whatever, and you're measuring your deep sleep and your REM sleep and your number of hours, that when you do that, it never really gives you those within a context of how old you are. It's just, you should have this much REM, you should have this much deep sleep, and this many hours of sleep. But in reality, that's not how sleep works. Sleep is constantly changing. And the study that I'm going to show you is an analysis of 3,500 people ages 5 to 102 years old. So 3,000, almost 600, 3,600 people from 5 to 102 years old, ranging from 1960 to 2003. So this is a 43-year span of looking at sleep over the lifespan. I mean, this was new to me. Like, I just thought sleep is sleep, but sleep is literally changing as we age. And because of that, it's part of the aging process, that anything we can do to reverse that is the best anti-aging that you're going to do. So let's scroll ahead, and I just want to show you a couple graphs, which I just think are just, these are all the studies that were done. Just amazing that somebody actually collected all these. This is why we love to have researchers, right? Because I would have never been patient enough to collect all this. But this is looking at these 3,700 people and looking at their total sleep time. And what do you notice over the lifespan? 5, 15, 30 years of age, 90 years of age? When we start to look at this, it doesn't stay the same. Total sleep time decreases significantly as we age. So anything that I can do to improve total sleep time takes me further backwards. Okay? Very, very important. That's what we want. We want to take it seriously, is the total sleep time. Sleep latency, which has to do with the amount of time that it takes you to get to sleep, should be somewhere between 7 minutes and 20 minutes. If you're falling asleep earlier than 7 minutes, that's too fast. That's called a sleep latency disorder. If it takes you more than 30 minutes to fall asleep, that's initial insomnia. It shouldn't take you that long. So here are the group of people, and what do you notice is they went from an average of about 15 and a half minutes to get to sleep, that in their 90s, it's taking them close to 20 minutes to get to sleep. It's part of the aging process. Here's another thing, which is probably one of the biggest slopes, and by slope, I mean downward with a significant trend, highly correlated, is your efficiency of sleep. So when a 5-year-old goes to sleep, their efficiency is about 98%, meaning the amount of time that they're in bed and how much they're actually sleeping is almost 100%. But what happens when we get older, get into our 80s and 90s? Our sleep efficiency goes down to 77, 78%, meaning a quarter of the time we're not really sleeping, right? So anything I can do to reverse efficiency. We just had somebody the other day who went from an efficiency of 65 to 85. Well, what did we do there? They're still the same age, but we worked in reverse of what the sleep efficiency was, which is going to set them up for the rest of the body to kind of fall in sync. Okay, we want sleep efficiency to be as high as possible. If you're looking for like some targets for anti-aging, sleep efficiency, you want it to be the best it can be. Okay. Stage 1 sleep, which is light sleep, did exactly what we'd expect. It got more over time, light sleep. But look at these last two. Slow wave sleep. This is what your body needs to restore itself. 25% of our sleep is slow wave sleep, or should be. And that's where we build things like testosterone in our bodies. Okay, so men, when they have a reduction in testosterone, and females too, it can be part of losing deep sleep. And the answer is to just use artificial testosterone, but the bigger answer should be, why am I not making the testosterone? It's probably because of your deep sleep. Okay. The group went from around 25% down to less than 7% in deep sleep. meaning their body was not restoring like it should. And then probably the one that concerns me the most, being a neuropsychologist, is REM sleep. REM sleep is what your body needs, your brain needs to store memories. All of our memory consolidation has so much to do with REM sleep, rapid eye movement or dreaming. What happens in the last 4 hours of our sleep. And what do you see here? The group went from about 23, 24% down to about 18%. I saw somebody the other day who their REM sleep percentage was 5%. For me, that's a red light. Like, we got to do something about that, because that's going to lead into a problem for brain health, and that is way down the spectrum in actual age. So we don't want that to happen. Okay, so let's address a couple other things, and then we'll be done and take any questions that you might have. Okay, so
Interesting.
here is an example of a sleep efficiency. This is actually a study that we do, where the person's sleep efficiency was 72%, but because of the slope that we saw earlier, we knew they needed to be about 80%. So because of that sleep efficiency, their brain is actually older than their timestamp, which may have been, in this case, 76 years of age. This is the example of that REM person that I mentioned, that very, very, very low REM. This is in minutes. You're looking at minutes on the left side. They were needed to be about 115 minutes, and they were about 12 minutes. Not good for overall brain health. And if you remember the sleep lecture from last month, you know all about how REM sleep works. If you haven't listened to that lecture, feel free to ask us, send us an email. We'll send you a recording of that. Or we have 3 podcasts that are really good about sleep that I'd recommend you listen to. So let's finish with this. Reasons for the aging to happen is we have the brain and body. The aging happens because we lose our ability to recover or restore. We saw that in the sleep patterns. Okay, the sleeping's not happening. What is the most significant brake pedal that we use during the day or during a 24-hour cycle? It's sleep. That brake pedal is sleep, right? And so parasympathetic decrease of sleep affects aging and causes the body not to function like it should, and the brain. We saw the issues of resilience and recovery that are related to parasympathetic. We need to work on improving that. So let's talk about some negative contributors. This could be a talk that goes on for hours talking about negative contributors to this. But the number one thing that I want you to be thinking about is inflammation. What are some different things that can be causing inflammation that act as inflammation causes a sympathetic response or a fast response? And if that's going on in my body or psychologically or emotionally, then it's very hard for me to recover. And so one of the first things I want to do is address inflammation. A great way to look at inflammation is something like an omega-3 index. Very easy to do. There's a great company called OmegaQuant who does an online assessment of that, where you they send you a kit and you get a little blood prick, and the blood drop, and it measures your omega-3 index, which is very important in inflammation. We also have those kits that if you want one, just ask us. They're like $50, and we can give you what your omega-3 marker, which tells you about your inflammation. There's other things you can do to measure inflammation too. Habitual patterns can be negative contributors. Sometimes we're working so hard and we're pushing ourselves so hard mentally and physically in a sympathetic or a fast state for decades of our life that our body adapts to that. I always like to say at most lectures I do is that the greatest thing about a human is that we adapt to things. You know, you put me in Alaska, I'll adapt to it. You put me in Costa Rica, I'll adapt to it, right? You change my diet, I'll adapt to it. The worst thing about being a human is we adapt to things. is we start to like adapt to this is normal to be this stressed all the time. And so learning to stop some of those habitual patterns in the brain and the body. And then choices. We're making choices along the way. We're not powerless. making choices about our sleep, making choices about our diet, about exercise, things that can impact. So what are some positive things we can do? Okay, one is decrease inflammation. I just got back from Antigua a few weeks ago, where I would see this as like the ultimate of addressing inflammation, that is stem cell. Well, not everybody does stem cell, but stem cell's goal, or one of its purposes, is decrease inflammation. But as you work downward, things like hyperbaric chamber, really good for decreasing inflammation. Infrared, there's some new studies related to brain health that using infrared, there's some devices that we can use on the brain that actually inducing infrared causes decrease in inflammation. Diet, definitely. The difference between omega-6 and omega-3 in our diet is huge. There's a great book on this called The Queen of Fats. The Queen of Fats. I'd strongly recommend that you read that if you want to understand a little bit more about addressing inflammation. Okay. And then maybe we've done these habitual choices that kind of set us up to age. Well, let's undo those. I've seen people at 95 years of age learn how to breathe and do coherence and make their heart look like it's 20 years younger, 25. Your brain and body can learn these things. Everybody watching, you can learn this stuff. The things that we do to do that are breathing work, HRV work, biofeedback, and neurofeedback. There's more things you can do, but these are great ways to retrain these bad habits out of your system. And then the last thing is a really basic thing. I think a lot of the things that we can do to help ourselves are actually free. We can breathe more, learn how to breathe well, and breathe more in a very calm 6 breaths a minute, very consistent pattern. That's you can just do that, right? Sleep better, okay? That doesn't cost you more. It's about choices, right? And what we're eating. And the last thing would be movement, is you've got to keep moving. Even when you're in pain and different things, you got to keep something going on. However, as we age, this is one last piece on this, and we're doing exercise, we have to be very careful to listen to what our body's telling us. Okay, a lot of you out there, previously maybe you were an athlete or did a lot of things, and you get back out there to exercise it and you think you're going to take off like you're 18 years old, right? And what happens is mentally you think you can do that, but your body, you're not listening to your body. And one of the best ways to listen to your body is when you're exercising, to use a heart rate monitor like a Polar and measure your heart, and initially try to keep your exercise to a limit of 180 minus your age. That will help with decreasing pain, inflammation. It'll keep you more in a fat burning stage, and it also help be more preventative of injuries. But that's a simple thing to do. You can do that on a bike, an elliptical, a treadmill, a walk uphill, whatever, trying to be 180 minus your age. And even if you can't do that, just keep moving. If it's light weights, a stationary bike for a few minutes, but always be moving. Okay, that's good for the body. Okay, we covered a lot. Thanks for being patient as we went through all of that. Let's see from Stephanie. I don't see a lot in the chat. So any questions? Anybody have any questions that you want to throw in the chat? Anything come up? Okay. You might want to type something if you have something, but while you're doing that, let me give you a couple other resources. Okay. If you don't have the book, Forge Your Inner Armor, please get that book. Just put it, if you want a free copy, we'll send one to you. Just put your address in the chat, okay? And we'll send you Forge Your Inner Armor. That's going to take what we talked about today and expand it out further and really understand what it is we're doing. So Forge Your Inner Armor. Great book for that. I really like the author of that book. Oh, wait a minute, that was me. Then some other resources are the Forge Your Inner Armor podcast. 52 episodes in this podcast. When I got to 52, I said, let's just have everybody make sure we're listening to those 52 first. We don't need to just keep pushing out more and more podcasts because there's so much that we say in these podcasts. There's 3 whole episodes, if not 4, just about sleep. Okay. There's about memory. We have some great physicians that come on that we talk about, that talk to us about a lot of different things that are really cool. Things about athletics, things about gut health, just some really cool stuff. So that's a great resource. And then if you go to Inner Armor Media, YouTube, Inner Armor Media, we have over 100 different podcasts and videos, short clips of things where you can hear athletes talk about things. You can hear business people talk about stuff. You can hear kids tell their stories. You can hear older adults. Great, great resource for that. And then the last one is our Tuesday lectures, which are going to happen the first Tuesday of the month with me, 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock. If you have a specific topic, I can't guarantee that I'll do it exactly next month, but feel free to send it through because we'd love to address different things. Okay. Stephanie, do I have anything from anybody? We all good? This group has it. They got it. They're good to go. Okay, great. Well, it was great seeing you guys. It was nice spending Tuesday evening with you for a little bit. Let's go take care of our brains, right? Let's do it. Okay. We'll see y'all. Y'all have a good night. Okay.
Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.